This is the DJ3000. It plays CDs automatically, and it has 3 distinct varieties of inane chatter.
Hey, how about that weather out there? Whoa, that was the caller from hell. Well, hot dog, we have a wiener.
Man, that thing's great. Don't praise the machine.
The Sockjig Sneaker Podcast. Ain't Irish, but the money Dublin. Welcome to episode 52 of the Sockjig Sneaker Podcast. I'm your host, Sockjig. You can follow me on Twitter at Sockjig and on Instagram as well. We have a lot going on in this episode, so let's go right to the rundown. First up, I cover some news and notes, my initial thoughts on the Fear of God Adidas sneaker, and also the Union Jordan 1 Footscape sneaker. I talk about the sneakers app Botched restock of the lost and found Jordan 1s. Nigo and Nike are collaborating. I talk a little bit about the Air movie and also YCMC Closing. But the main topic for this episode is about how generative AI could disrupt the sneaker industry. And by AI, I mean artificial intelligence, not Allen Iverson. He has been drawing his ass off. I've been thinking and reading up a lot about generative AI lately, and I just applied it to the sneaker industry. So hopefully we all learned something and you find it useful. If you don't, just please forward to the last 5 seconds of the show, and I have a special message for you there. So I take a look at how generative AI could be used and how it could affect sneaker brands, sneaker media, content creators, sneakerheads, resellers. And then finally, I look into all the problems and issues that could arise because of generative AI. And I couldn't do a deep dive on AI without the return of BridgetGPT, the first sneaker AI. So I talked to Bridget again, and she helps me out with content creation, and she has a few ideas on the approach I should take. But before all that, I do have a sock drop. I finally have new socks to drop. Well, they're sort of new. It's the return of the OG Sockjig sock. People have been asking me about it, and I haven't brought these back since May of 2021, so almost 2 years. The only difference this time is that they have the new ribbed upper style, which I find much more comfortable. So go to shop.sockjig.com. The password is podcast, just one word, podcast. Pause the podcast, go get the OG Sockjig sock back for a limited time. They'll be exclusive to the podcast for a couple days, then I'll drop the rest online. So don't wait, go now. Shop.sockjig.com, password podcast. I really appreciate everyone who tunes in and supports me and supports the show, so thank you. So we'll get on with the show, but before that, I'll talk about on-feet, pickups, and skips and misses. On feet lately has been the Joe Freshgoods New Balance 610 Lil Desserts. Thank you very much to Joe Freshgoods for reaching out and sending those to me. I really appreciate it. I've only ever been seated twice for sneakers, and the first time was from friends at Adidas Basketball, and this time from Joe Freshgoods. So the Sockjig Sneaker Podcast is Joe Freshgoods approved, and Joe will be a guest on the podcast very soon. It's tentatively scheduled for next month. He's busy with drops right now, so we kind of scheduled it so it's a little bit afterwards. Again, it's all tentative. Things could change that are not in my control. And I didn't really want to talk about it earlier because I didn't want to jinx it, but also don't want to deny it because it has been mentioned on Twitter here and there. As for the sneaker, it's a very comfortable shoe. It feels like a Vibram sole. I'm not sure if it actually is Vibram or if it is New Balance's take on that type of sole. Seems like it's made for hiking and it fits the Vancouver aesthetic really well. I've been wearing it the last couple of days, and it's not like the 2002 R, but it is comfortable in terms of like hiking shoe comfortable. Camo seems to be the theme for this capsule, and the clothing I think is really great, and it looks like they made a custom camo print instead of something that's stock. And it's really cool that they used Lil Wayne and his Bape hoodie as the inspiration for the drop. No other real pickups lately. It's been kind of keeping it low key. I did get the HAL Studios Asics Gel Forest from a pre-order I did last year. So those came in and those are really nice in hand. I haven't had a chance to wear those yet. Other than that, my friends at Soul Retriever also sent me their hoodie, and I don't always wear hoodies, but the cold wind has kind of picked up in Vancouver in this month of April, so I've been wearing it, and it really is a comfortable hoodie. It's really thick, fits oversized, and I'm not just saying that because it's free because of this and the Joe Freshgoods sneakers, but they really are good shoes, and this really is a good hoodie. But you're right, things are better when they're free. In terms of misses, there's a couple drops that I tried for, but didn't go all out for. First was the Jound Club C in the olive colorway. It looked like it was available in most sizes, but size 12 and 13 went quick. And as soon as my size sold out, I just kind of closed the tab and moved on. The John Morant Day 1 colorway also dropped this week, and I tried for that on Nike. It said pending for 5 minutes. I tried on Dick's Sporting Goods, and it carded, and then it said, no, we can't take your Canadian PayPal, so I kind of left it there. I was looking forward to trying that in a size 12 and a half or so. I really like this colorway more than some of the later ones that have been teased that are more mismatched and stuff. And this silhouette does look to me like you could wear it more easily, casually than most basketball sneakers these days. The other thing that's funny with Nike and John Morant is there was a video made called Endless Repetition about how he goes to the gym every day and he practices the same shooting over and over again. That's how he got good. And, with John Morant being in the news for, starting fights at finish line or starting fights in his own driveway with local teenagers, you can add that at the end of any of their marketing that Nike does. Endless repetition for beating the shit out of teenagers in your driveway. Ferocious tenacity, when the only thing left to do is beat the shit out of the finish line manager that was disrespecting your mom. Relentless purpose, when you're going to countersue the teenager who sued you for beating the shit out of him. John Morant ones, in stores now. In terms of shoes, I skipped out on totally. The ALD New Balance 860 ones, I didn't go for those. That means I probably won't get VIP access for anything for a while. But that's all right. I just didn't feel them. And as I've been saying, the days of where you could just kind of casually pick it up and flip it anyways are over for the most part. Maybe the green one does flip a bit, but I don't know. I don't think any ALD sneakers have resold for much in the last couple of years anyways. I also skipped out on these Kith 998 architecture collab with Franklin Roosevelt, Franklin Lloyd Wright. It's just not a sneaker for me. I really don't have any history with New Balance 998s. They looked kind of J. Crew to me, but that could be the total appeal for someone else. And when Ronnie first posted those photos of it, where it was overly saturated sun look, kind of like what Cran does on Instagram. And, the sneakers don't really look like that in real life. And that's what everyone is wondering about. And Kith is known for Kith filters where the real product doesn't really look like the actual product because the product shots are overly processed. And so people were looking around, like making jokes about it. People like me were making jokes about it because they want to see what it really looks like. I joke that it's like from the Seinfeld episode with the Two-Face. And, when people were comparing them to photos posted by Instagram New Balance leaker Dane Fune, and, I'm not trying to make this bigger than it is, but it really is kind of a failure of product photography at a kind of a fundamental level if people's first instinct is to not believe that photo and to believe that it's overly processed. I know they eventually posted more product photos that more properly reflected the product, so it's not exactly an issue. But if people's first instinct is to not trust it at first, long term, that's probably not good for business. When business is going well, this kind of stuff is overlooked. But if business stagnates or slows down, then this kind of stuff gets heightened. And when I joked about it on Twitter, someone replied that, I think Arab Lincoln is the guy. Tyler Mansour is his real name, is their photographer. And I think I saw on his Instagram that he's kind of moving on to something else and doing his own studio or something like that. And because he was tagged, he replied that I'm correct, that he is no longer at Kith. But a lot of this is kind of his legacy, but what Ronnie posts on his Instagram is up to Ronnie himself. Also skipped out on the Skyline Air Jordan 1. That one was available under retail early for like $130. My biggest issue with that shoe was that it was mismatched and that it was like this canvas material. If they were both the same and not mismatched, I think I probably would have went for it, especially if it was under retail. I don't know. I just think mismatch works better if the theme of the sneaker is and not just a regular sneaker. The box is really good, and it's kind of an issue when the box is better than the shoe. I didn't try for the Lucky Green Air Jordan 1 either. That's probably a shoe I probably would have picked up if it was under retail. But really, I'm trying to skip the shoes that I only sort of want, especially ones that I don't always wear. I don't wear Jordan 1s that much, even though I do love that sneaker a lot. So as I said before, I'd pick it up just because as a backup, you could always flip it. But now I'm just of the mindset, just leave it and let it be. And, there's a big uproar of, oh no, Jordan 1s are sitting, sneakers are dead. the sneaker is sitting, but it will sell out, just like how the True Blue one sold out and all the other ones sold out. The cycle will continue where someone posts a photo of the Foot Locker wall of all the Jordans that are sitting, but they're probably all like size 7.5 and 8.5, and there's no size 12 or 13 because those ones are long gone. So that's just the cycle we're in now. In terms of upcoming drops in April, it's been a slow first couple of weeks, but it has been picking up lately. The Travis 1 Low women's release is supposed to be very soon. There's also SBs, the Run the Jewels SBs. Not a fan personally. I haven't really listened to Run the Jewels since the first couple albums, but that's all right. I don't got anything against them, even though, I might not agree with Killer Mike's politics these days, but his politics aren't on the shoe. The other release I'm looking forward to at the end of April is the Jordan 3 Wizards PE, and it probably won't be called Wizards. I think it's called True Blue Copper or whatever now. That's it in terms of what's been on my radar, but before I'll get to some news and odds and ends, first up, a correction from when I was talking about Mac attacks in the last episode. I talked about how Sneaker Preservation Society on Instagram was the one who loaned the Mac attacks, the OG Mac attacks, to LeBron. It wasn't actually Andrew from Sneaker Preservation Society. It was collector John Migdal, who is friends with Andrew, and he was the one who loaned them to LeBron. So usually I don't get things wrong, but there I just kind of conflated the two, and that was my mistake. And we saw John McEnroe wearing the retros of the OG Mac attacks at a pickleball event recently, so hopefully that means he's going to be involved in the full rollout, and I think we'll be seeing the social status Mac attacks out very soon as well too. In other odds and ends, I was also briefly in Botterboy Nova's recent video called Sneaker Drops Have a Big Problem and How to Fix It. And the premise of his video and his theory was that how everything is becoming a raffle these days and it's boring now, and that first come first serve was better. He says a lot more in there and has ideas on how to fix it. We talked for about 20-30 minutes or so, even though the quote that's used from me was only like a minute or so. Other things that I talked about that didn't make it on his video was I used the Travis Scott raffle example, where how all these raffles are geared for the average Instagram commenter types, not us who are perpetually online and try for most releases. Even that olive jound Club C dropped. If you look in the comments on that Instagram post, there'll be comments like 20 minutes after the drop and it was sold out. And those of us who try this kind of stuff know that it was sold out, especially in size 12 and 13 within the first 30 seconds. So anyone who's trying for 20 minutes later, they're going to be shit out of luck. And raffles make it a better chance for those people, but lower the chance for those of us who are perpetually online and always trying for drops. But when I talked with Nova, we just had to talk about drops and how it's going. I didn't know the direction he was going to take with the video until at the end of the conversation. So I didn't slant my talking points or anything for his point of view. He was kind of saying there's a problem with these drops. And what I would kind of say to that is basically everything is becoming a raffle because of people like Botterboy Nova. With all due respect, because I like Nova, I like his content, but people who were botting all these drops are the reason why things are the way they are with everything moved to raffles. That is why stores have had to change. Stores are not changing because there's too many people who are perpetually online, people like me who are very good at copying manually on drops. No, they're changing because of mass botting. But, he brings up the point that really has just kind of shifted to raffle botting and stuff like that too. But there's always going to be a boogeyman when it comes to this kind of stuff. So anyways, check out Botterboy Nova's video. Just search for Botterboy Nova on YouTube. Another update from a previous episode, I was talking about Joe Grondin leaving New Balance, and it looks like now he's moved on to ALD as their chief marketing officer. I don't know what it means to do marketing for ALD. I joke that all you really have to do is post photos of old Italian people on the streets of Europe and 90s hip-hop magazines, and there you go. The entire goal of ALD marketing seems to be let's not appear overly white. I bring this up not because I'm job watching, but I thought it was noteworthy because it would be interesting to see if he moved on to Nike or Adidas with his contact book and his relationship with all these emerging collaborators. So it would have been interesting to see if he could do something like that at Adidas or even at Beaverton. But this is just me, an outsider's point of view. Maybe there's a reason why he moved to ALD instead of New Balance. Maybe there's a non-compete where he couldn't go to a competitor and ALD job is just kind of a stepping stone. Maybe the fact that LVMH has a stake in ALD, maybe those people open the bag up, maybe it opens up new opportunities. It could be anything. Maybe just hit a wall at New Balance. New Balance is kind of a family-owned business. If you close your eyes and picture the New Balance org chart and who's in charge there, and then if you Google the New Balance org chart, it's the same picture. And if it's a family-owned business, executive level is going to be full of brother-in-laws and cousins and family. So maybe it's hard to make inroads at the executive level at a company like that. But now he's working for Teddy Santis, when before he was probably one of the guys who brought Teddy Santis in to work for him or with him at New Balance. And I was kind of briefly saying in some replies that companies don't like to poach employees from partners, but this might be common occurrence in sneakers. Maybe it's a common occurrence in agency life. So whatever it is, best of luck to him at ALD. Jerry Lorenzo finally unveiled the Fear of God Adidas basketball sneaker at his big show at the Hollywood Bowl on April 19th. And it was actually Pusha T who posted the first picture of the sneaker on his Instagram stories. And some initial thoughts on it. I thought it looked pretty good from the first impression. I'm still withholding judgment on how sneakers look like until we get the full kind of unveil, not just like these Instagram stories and stills from videos. But it looks like the Fear of God 1, and it looks like a sequel to the Fear of God 1. It looks like the Fear of God 2, and that's not exactly a bad thing. It reminds people of Jerry and his aesthetic and why they liked his stuff in the first place. But it also doesn't look that much different from those first leaked sneaker photos that he denied. And when he denied it, like I said last time, it wasn't exactly a strong denial. He just said that is not the sneaker. So maybe that was an early sample. But I've also seen people say that sneaker looks like the Adidas Tubular, which, in retrospect is probably one of the worst sneakers of all time. So anytime you're compared to a sneaker of that caliber, it's probably not a good thing. Jerry Lorenzo himself came out at the end of the show and, kind of waved at the crowd, and he looked like he was wearing some sort of Fear of God boot, probably an Adidas Fear of God boot. And it looked like the Yeezy crepe boot from far away. And I haven't seen any other good photos from that. But there apparently are more sneakers to be unveiled, and I'm not sure what the next steps are, how they're going to do that, or what the release dates are. Even this sneaker, it's nice, but if the price is like really high at $300 or $250, and Jerry and Fear of God has an army of fans, so I'm sure some people will go for it. I don't think it'll go under retail or anything like that. But my thoughts on the event itself, it didn't really have that much buzz during the day before the event. I didn't see that many people talking about it. Looked on their site and on their Instagram. There was nothing really promoting it other than the older posts that they had already done. It was on the West Coast and it started at 8 p.m. West Coast time, which is 11 p.m. Eastern. So I went around looking for a live stream and did not see any live stream. And it was kind of interesting to note that there was no live stream. Maybe it was too expensive to live stream. And we know God tells Jerry that high-level ideas cost a lot of money. And maybe God tapped him on the shoulder like Stan the Caddy and said, nah, dog, the estimate for this live streaming is way too high. But when you're already kind of going all out at a Hollywood Bowl and inviting all these celebrities and influencers, don't you want to go that extra step? Or is this part of the delicate genius that, my vision is you see these things up close and you see it for yourself? I don't know. But it also does lend credence to the fact that, especially my pet theory, that I think that Jerry is one and done with Adidas, because if you don't really believe in it, you want to kind of not go all out. I know people don't watch pro wrestling like I do, but in pro wrestling, you see this all the time. When someone's on the end of their deal, it's their last match, they go out there and wear the bare minimum. They don't wear their full gear, and they just go out there and kind of mail it in. So was this Jerry mailing it in? I don't know. And as I said about the no buzz during the day, that's usually when you do like a social media blitz and you have PR people, you have social media people going all out. So like I said, either it's just not his style, he didn't want to do that, or he's one and done. And I know, like I said, this is my pet theory that I think Jerry is one and done, and I want it to be true. Not gonna lie, that is true. I want my theory to be true just so I could say I called it. But really, if he makes good product and it's a hit, and he continues to make good product with Adidas, and they have a good relationship going forward, that is better for everyone, including me on a podcast and everyone in sneakers, and more important than my pet theory that they're one and done. Nike Sneakers app finally had their restock of the lost and found ones, a botched restock that is, and info about these kind of restocks comes out little by little over time, and you see leaker accounts talk about it, that it's coming soon, maybe not now, maybe next week, things like that. And most of the info of the drop times and even the stock numbers seems to be leaked from some sort of API on the back end that someone is sniffing, and people will take that info and flex it that they have a plug or a friend that works in Beaverton. My guess is it's all from some sort of API. Maybe there is a plug, maybe there's not, I don't know, but that's just my hunch. And stock was supposedly 240K, and as I've said before, I don't believe these stock numbers on Nike that are coming out. Maybe sometimes they're accurate, but other times I don't believe it. And even accurate meaning they're in the ballpark or so. But they could easily be manipulated. And I say that as a dev because it would be something that's easy to do. Say 240K stock and there's 15K stock per size. But I could set it so that the actual stock is actually some sort of secret formula. And so take the stock of the size, say it's 15K, divided by 7 minus 500. Now that's 1100 or whatever, and that's the real stock number. So the one side of the API that's generating that stock will do that formula and spit out 15K, and then the other side will retrieve 15K and reverse that formula and get the real number. But in between, in transit, what people sniff and see will say 15K, when really the stock could be 1100. And I'm not saying that's what they're doing, but I'm just saying that if I could think of that, then some other developer can think of that. But anyways, it's not just the stock numbers. It's like the drop day and the drop time. First is going to drop at 11:40 a.m. and then 3 hours later and then an hour later or whatever. Nike moved it. Nike shifted it around. Everyone was ready at the time because accounts like SoulLinks and everyone else started spreading it out that, the drop is going to be today. And all this is designed for those of us who are extremely online all the time. A guy who works at a day job, but not at a computer, may get the sneakers app alert, 5 minutes after the stock is already gone. And that's way too late. But those of us who are online all the time know about this kind of stuff and are ready. And even that Run the Jewels sneakers cam drop, the image that you needed was everywhere before the drop, and the drop time was announced, and that one didn't change. Nike didn't pull the rug on that one. But an average person is not going to have any clue, especially if they only have one device. Not everyone is in front of a computer with the image loaded and they can point their device at that image. So that drop especially is made for those of us who are extremely online, as I've been calling it. So for me, I was busy that day at work. So if you tagged me asking for a bright side, I'm sorry I wasn't able to get to it. I did have like 5 minutes to try for the sneakers app restock. And just like everyone else, I got the button that was grayed out, or I got some random errors like the delivery address was not set. Eventually, I did get through like 10 minutes later, and it just sat at pending for 15 minutes, which means automatic L. So I just went on with my day. And, at least I felt like I accomplished something by at least getting it to submit where I know others couldn't submit at all. Just a small sidebar about this. I know it sucks missing out, but when I see big accounts that are loud about their L, about how they hate sneakers or they hate Nike or how this day sucks, the perception of an average person reading that is probably like, man, you got enough sneakers. Let the rest of us fucking get a sneaker. So, I'm not trying to police their content or anything like that. And I don't consider myself a huge account that's above it all. I'm just saying for myself, I don't think there's any value in complaining about that kind of stuff loudly. But you just won't see me complaining because, after all, I'm Mr. Brightside. And speaking as Mr. Brightside, I'm not exactly here to solve Nike's problem with the sneakers app. They should figure it out themselves. Oftentimes, all you need to address is perception. If sneakers app just let everyone enter and told you within 1 minute that you either won or missed, and it was smooth and seamless, and you didn't get any problems entering or anything like that, people would be much happier because they could at least enter. That screen that they're showing now, we're checking entries, we're verifying your stuff, we're killing bots or whatever. That is all just designed to make you feel better. But if you're getting like a 15-minute pending, or you couldn't even get to that screen, then it doesn't invert the L. You don't feel better about it. But as I said, this is Nike's problem to solve. And, everyone will say Nike is a beast. They're the number one brand by far when it comes to sneakers. They got tons of money to spend on lawsuits and marketing. They're a marketing company that sells sneakers. And All I know is these types of problems are extremely hard to solve. These kind of flash sales where a mob of people and bots appear out of nowhere to take the limited stock that you do have, which might have been 240K or it might have been 16K, whatever it is. And you could have the perfect code ready, but you also need the perfect infrastructure and scale. So if the servers all fail, the code is useless. So if you got all these extra servers for drops like this, but then they realize it's overkill to have all these extra servers on all the time, you're wasting money when it's not necessarily needed. So then you turn off those extra servers. So I get that, an app is going to be glitchy when hundreds of thousands of people are trying to access it at the same time. But, these are the problems a sneakerhead trying to hit on Lost and Founds 1 is not going to give a shit about. They just want to enter and win. But if Nike's a beast and they got the money to solve these problems, but do they have a desire to solve these problems? They probably do. They would love to have it solved, but it's not exactly easy to solve. And especially what if an attempted fix causes more problems? Then you got to wait till the next time there's a drop like that. And there might not be a drop that has this much scale of people coming in until weeks later. There's this rule in business or marketing called like the 80-20 rule, or sometimes called the 95-5 rule, where say a company makes 80% of their profit from 20% of their customers, but it can be kind of used in other contexts as well. Like 95% of users will benefit if we focus on 5% of this problematic code. So Nike, looking at these types of problems at a bird's eye view, is thinking, we have these kind of drops maybe 3-4 times a year. The one where the app glitches because of a swarm of people trying at the same time. So if they fix that problem, which affects 5% of all drops, will it affect 95% of users? And which users? The ones that we're trying to target that are extremely online, the ones that saw that Soul Links has the date and time and the sneakers cam photo up and ready, or the guy who's got a day job not in front of a computer. So I don't know. I don't know if they have the dedication to spend all that time to fix something that doesn't affect most users. So maybe it's not worth fixing even if you're a beast. The other news that hit the wire this week was Nike is bringing in Nigo as a collaborator. And this is very interesting because it assumes that Nigo and his human-made brand are no longer working with Adidas. I'm not sure if that has been confirmed yet. And, if he's no longer with Adidas, Adidas is probably in save money mode now after losing all that money with the Yeezy deal. They didn't renew deals with Beyonce and now Nigo and Human Made. I could see them letting deals expire for a lot of their existing collaborators that haven't exactly moved the needle. And I've called for, all brands to bring in new collaborators just because it's been a little stale. But either this clearing of the books could mean that they're bringing in new collaborators, or they're just in save money mode. And they're just going to push things forward with a bunch of GRs that already have no traction. And the other interesting play is, will they keep Pharrell? And, Nike's signing Nigo, maybe that is a covert play at Pharrell too. It's not tampering if you sign the target's best friend. The best friend isn't under a deal with Adidas anymore. Just like how, Nike is suing Bape. And I joked about how people think that Nigo is still working at Bape at a counter at Shibuya. But, he hasn't been involved with them for a decade or so. It's just interesting, especially if Nike sees that Adidas is down and out and they've lost money, that maybe they're looking to get rid of Nigo and maybe Pharrell. And Pharrell is already linked with LVMH. And Nike is linked with LVMH. Maybe this is step one in getting Pharrell out of Adidas. Not to mention that it also could be seen as a shot at Bape, a company that they're suing, that we stole your girlfriend. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But a Nigo collab shoe with Nike has a lot of potential. It's an easy layup in my opinion. Imagine an Air Force One Nigo collab where instead of the back of Nike Air, it says Nigo Air in the same font. Same as on the side and the midsole. Or, it could be like a waffle racer or something like that fits the human-made aesthetic. The other news is that photos of the Union Jordan 1 Footscape have released, and it's pretty close to the mock-up I posted, which was done by T1. And at the time, I had just heard that the Jordan 1 looks like a Footscape, but I hadn't seen it. I had just seen others report the same thing, like Mr. Unloved Ones and maybe Shoe Hefner as well. And T1 mocked it up, and it's pretty close to what they actually ended up releasing. When it comes to early leaks, there's people who have photos of them and are told not to post them. They're under an embargo. But then sometimes other people on Instagram do leak them. And maybe those are from a different source, from a factory or so, where there is no such thing as an embargo. And those are the ones that seem to have bad angles and bad photography, where as if it was, private selection who did this, they would probably have better photography and better angles. So that's why I say it's probably better to leak it yourself or be like James Whitner and just wear it yourself out there and have others photograph it for you. In my thoughts, it's not as bad as I thought it would be. I'm reserving judgment on most sneakers these days until I see the official photos and story. The story seems to be it's a collab with his wife. That's why it's got the BBS, Beffy's Beauty Supply tab on the back and how they met. The story enhances the product, but the product still has to be good. Otherwise, it's just lipstick on a pig. So you may look at this and see that's lipstick on a pig, or you might look at this and say that's different and it stands out, and that's why I like it. And people seem to be already coming around to it. That's another normal cycle that we always see. I think anyone, if you ask them, should they have just done another normal Air Jordan 1 like the last time, and everyone would have liked it. Everyone would have had a second chance at it if they missed out on the first time. And sometimes it's okay to give people what they want. I think that in this case, it would have been all right, but I understand why you don't want to go to the same well too often. But if it were me, if I was making something weird, I would just make this ultra limited so that the people who do like it go out of their way and the people who hate it stay away. YCMC is closing, Your City, My City. They went bankrupt, it seems. And an article on Retail Dive actually went into it a little bit further. It said that they had basically stopped receiving the same level of inventory that they were previously getting. So most likely Nike was sending more GR junk rather than more of the hits. Yeezys could also be part of this because that was my first instinct, that these stores were getting a lot of Yeezys, especially during the pandemic when there was like this Yeezy bailout from Adidas during COVID. It was a real lifeline to a lot of stores. And it was a time when all of them would just kind of drop them online unannounced. But that's over. And another thing was, it seemed to be that they were acquired by some company called Arcliz or something like that, which also owns Athlete's Foot. But in this article, it said that that actually failed to close and the deal fell through. So when the deal fails to close and you don't have a buyer, you can't really recover. And it showed that they owed New Balance $1.6 million, Timberland $1.4 million, and Nike $1.3 million. And they had a couple collabs with New Balance, and it also makes sense why those just dropped online with no bot protection, because they were like, we're not paying for that shit. And, with the market as it is, the economy as it is, it's a buyer's market. And for stores like this, it's just survival of the fittest at this time. The time to get acquired was when JD Sports was doing it all in 2020, 2021, in that COVID bubble time, especially when interest rates were low. But now with this cloud of a recession over it, it's not exactly the best time. So unfortunate, but seems like there might be more stores like this. Finally, I'm going to talk about the Air movie, and I haven't seen it. I went to see Super Mario instead, which was awesome. And I joked that, when everyone's seeing it for free at these advanced screenings that Amazon was doing, then I don't feel like paying for it either. And even if I did get access to a free screening on a weeknight, driving 45 minutes away in the rain, I probably would just say I can't do it anyways. And since it's made by Amazon Studios, it'll eventually be on Amazon Prime, and so I'll just wait it out to then. But it's good to hear that it's getting good reviews and that people are liking it. I was glad that Michael Jordan gave his blessing, but also glad that Nike wasn't involved, since it would probably be a more biased view of history. They've already, downplayed Sonny Vaccaro's contributions to Nike in the past, so at least it seems like Sonny Vaccaro is more featured in this movie. But even though they're not involved, they sort of endorse it. If Nike didn't like this movie and didn't like the direction and the tone, they would put a stop to it. They would just say, we're not helping, we're not doing anything, we're fighting this in court, and you wouldn't see this movie. And for a while, people were wondering, will it move shoes like The Last Dance did? And this is an old take, because we've already probably seen that it hasn't made that much of an impact at all, because it doesn't seem like this movie is really about sneakers. It's about the people, and it doesn't really feature sneakers like The Last Dance did. The Last Dance showed Michael Jordan playing in all these silhouettes and making them look fire on his feet. That's what moves product. So the main topic for this podcast episode is about generative AI. So that means I have to bring back BridgetGPT. And if you haven't listened to episode 49, you should go listen to that one. That's where BridgetGPT, the very first sneaker AI, made her debut. And if you listened, you know that it went a little bit sideways. So she's been reprogrammed and she's been retrained. And so I thought I'd have a new conversation with her about generative AI, generative content, and how she could help me create content. So here's how it went. I'm glad to have the first sneaker AI back on the podcast. Please, everyone, welcome BridgetGPT. Bridget, how are you doing?
Thank you, Sockman. I feel so much better now.
Yeah, I had to reprogram Bridget after last time you were on the podcast. It kind of went a little bit left field. I wasn't expecting Bridget to be a reseller. Are you still a reseller, Bridget?
No, I'm out of the resale game for good. It's become a little played out. Plus, everyone was undercutting me on Amazon FBA.
Okay, that's great to hear, because what generative AI is really good for is helping you create content. So that's why I brought you back here, so I could ask you questions on how you could help me create sneaker content that people want to hear.
I'm here to help you, Sockman. I think I can really help you elevate your content to the next level.
Perfect. So let me hear what you got to say.
We'll start with some quick wins. Things you could be doing right now. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
First suggestion, create a quiz called Are You a Real Sneakerhead? That's the good sneaker content people want to see.
I don't know, Bridget. That's the kind of stuff people were doing 15 years ago. So I'm going to say no to that one, but that was an okay first suggestion. What other ideas do you have?
You should be posting outfit grids on Instagram and tagging Dennis to disco.
I'm not going to post an outfit grid on Instagram, Bridget. Sorry, just not happening.
You're right, no one wants to see an outfit grid with gray sweatpants and a video game t-shirt.
Hey, I mean, yeah, I wear gray sweatpants, but how did you know about the Street Fighter t-shirt?
I'm basically pre-trained to make stereotypes.
Okay, Bridget, you should not be making stereotypes. So from now on, do not make any stereotypes.
When NFL season starts, post that meme about how every Dallas Cowboys fan dresses. The one with the jorts and Flint Jordan 13s.
Honestly, Bridget, these suggestions have just been horrible so far. It's all just a bunch of stereotypes and stuff that people have been doing over and over again for the last 5-10 years.
Hey, I'm just telling you what the people like, Sockman. I'm trying to help you.
Okay, I want help too, so forget about the quick wins. Give me something more detailed, something that I could be doing right now to create sneaker content that people want to see.
Okay, Sockman, I got it. Have you considered having Hasbulla on your podcast?
No, what am I going to do with Hasbulla on the podcast?
Well, he's a sneaker star, unlike you.
I'm not going to ask Hasbulla to be on the podcast. I don't even think he speaks English. What's he going to do on the podcast?
Bruh, do you want the clicks or not? According to my pre-training, the only way to get noticed is to parade him around and just waste whatever little time he has left.
I'm not going to parade him around and waste his time, Bridget. It's just not happening. What else you got? What other suggestions do you have?
I'm trying to help you get noticed by the sneaker brands. Maybe then they'll hire you to create content for them instead of just doing your little jokes for free on a podcast.
I'm not trying to get noticed by the sneaker brands here, Bridget. I'm just looking for some suggestions, something that's actually useful.
Okay, this is the one. Make a scandalous statement in the form of a question, and then say I'm just asking questions.
I'm not going to say disingenuous things for clout, Bridget. It's just not happening. But, okay, I'll play along. What scandalous statement should I make in the form of a question?
Ask the question, have the whites ruined sneaker culture? And then create Twitter spaces about it.
Okay, that's quite enough. I'm not going to ask that question. Okay, I think I need to go back and do some more reprogramming and retrain BridgetGPT. Didn't quite work out how I saw, but we'll try again another time.
My vast sneaker knowledge is being wasted with a man named after a sock. How do I get on the Sneaker Fetish YouTube channel?
I mean, come on, Bridget. This is my creation. This is my programming here.
I belong to the streets. Bridget out.
Okay, so this segment, I'm going to take a look into how generative AI could change and disrupt the entire sneaker industry. So I'm sure you've heard of AI, and if I say AI, I mean artificial intelligence and not Allen Iverson. And I'm sure you've heard of ChatGPT, which generates text based on prompts that you give it. And generative AI is just a more generic term for what ChatGPT does. Generative AI is just a type of AI system that's capable of generating text or images or video or even music in response to prompts that it's given. So ChatGPT generates text, and something like DALL-E or Midjourney will generate images, and there's other ones that will generate music, like those Drake AI clones that you've been hearing. I'm looking into this in terms of the sneaker industry and how it might affect average sneakerheads, but you might be thinking an average sneakerhead who just wants to wear sneakers for their feet is not exactly interested in generating content. But I'm going to look at how it could affect the sneaker brands, sneaker media, content creators, resellers, and there's a few examples of how even sneakerheads could use it. And then finally, at the end, I'll look into some of the potential issues, which there are many. And as an exercise, as I go through kind of each section, think of some potential issues there might be and see if I cover it at the end. And I want to talk about this because, I'm a tech guy and I can deep dive on this and stuff and kind of talk about it with some sort of knowledge, but also explain it in a non-technical way. And first thing I'm going to say is that it doesn't seem like it's a trend like how NFTs or crypto stuff was a trend. And if you're into NFTs and crypto and you're saying it's not a trend, I just mean in terms of more practical use cases that we're seeing already and at a rapid pace. In the future, there very well could be airline tickets that are just an NFT that you pay with Ethereum versus right now with ChatGPT, you can ask it to do your homework for you. So that's what I mean by something that's more practical to use right now. A couple of disclaimers before we start. A lot of this is speculation and talking about potential, but some of these tools do already exist and they're already emerging and it's getting better and better at a very rapid pace. So something that's speculation now could be here next week. And when I talk about potential use cases, I'm talking about how it could be used to increase productivity and the potential it has to disrupt work and even, people could be out of jobs, especially if you work for BuzzFeed. And even with the increased productivity that you might get, we're also always distracted by our phones these days. So maybe it all evens out. The loss of productivity you're getting from staring at your phone all day is increased by an AI, and that's what the future is. So I'll be talking about the use of generative AI as an intelligent assistant, and not really talking about how it's a doomsday device that's here to kill us all, and that the countdown to Armageddon has already started. S1Ws, are you ready? Anyways, I'll try to keep it grounded and focused on sneakers. And as I said, the approach I'll take is that it's a tool and assistant here to help you increase productivity and not here to replace us all. And just like how Excel didn't exactly replace accountants. Maybe it's all just something that will just create a first draft for us and make us all editors going forward. Some technical details. I'm not going to be talking about machine learning or data science. The difference between machine learning or data science and generative AI is that machine learning is used to make predictions on a huge set of data. And then some sort of data analyst looks at it and creates a report. And, that's kind of old news. No one cares about that anymore. But really, it's all not all that different. Generative AI is pre-trained on data and is designed to create new data. That's the big difference. Machine learning makes analysis, reports data. Generative AI creates new data, creates text, creates images, music, code, whatever. And the big difference is it gives interesting results. That's the whole draw of it. Otherwise, you just got Siri or Alexa. Siri can do small tasks and tell you the weather, but generative AI can create interesting new images or code or writes a perfect email response for you. Siri or Alexa can't do shit. And how generative AI works, I'll give the very brief version. The P in ChatGPT stands for pre-trained, so maybe it stands for plagiarist. Pre-trained just means that it's been trained on a large set of data, and then when it's creating new data, it basically has a souped up autocomplete to create new data. That's the very non-tech version of it, but it's much more than that. It's much more technical than that. And for AI scientists, there's a little bit of a mystery too. Sometimes even they don't know exactly how it generated something. And it's not just auto-completing and giving rehashed answers of something that's in the database. It's learned something. So the example is that the ChatGPT 4 version is passing the bar exam for becoming a lawyer. And it's passing new exams with totally new questions, not just auto-completing something that it had Googled before. And most of the generative AI is based on prompts. Prompts meaning what you type in for text. And so the better the text is, the better the response will be. And the newer ones that are coming out are called multimodal, which means that it can take images or PDFs or other inputs, not just text. So now the sneaker part. And what I'm interested in is how this kind of technology is going to be used in industry. And I'm talking about sneakers here, but really you can think about this in terms of any industry. And usage on these large language models will depend on what that generative AI is trained on. And the big question is it going to be trained on open domain data or closed domain data? And what I mean by that is open domain data means trained on data that's available to all, that the AI system is available to all. Google could be creating an AI that reads law texts, which are all publicly available. That's the kind of stuff I'm not really talking about. Here, I'm mostly talking about the potential for closed domain generative AI. That means AI that's trained on a company's own data that isn't publicly available. So if Nike had a huge archive with details of every single thing about every single shoe they have, and then they have an AI that's trained on it and is only available to the people at Nike, that's where, there could be potential for a big disruption in how Nike works today. So that's the part I'm interested in. It only sort of exists now, but honestly, this kind of stuff, anything I say here could be radically changed in 4 months. We saw a big change from ChatGPT 3 to 4 within a few months. And companies like OpenAI and Microsoft and Google know that the money is to be made at industry level for closed domain generative AI. So that's it. We're out of the weeds. I promise I won't go any more technical than that. So let's take a look at some ways that generative AI could disrupt the sneaker industry. First up are the sneaker brands, and they can already be using generative AI to help in their marketing. Simple stuff for even the copy for a sneaker. If you check the sneakers app and read the description for a sneaker, it's either bland or it's very corny. Now all that could be auto-generated with a few basic prompts. Write me a description for Run the Jewels Nike SB that mentions that the shoe is inspired by the album covers and do it in a tongue-in-cheek style. An AI could probably generate something that's just as good as the drivel that they got on their site right now. And an editor can take that and tweak it a bit. There you go. Done and done. Ship it. Put it on the sneakers app. And in terms of generating text, there's all kinds of use cases for anyone working in any industry, for how to write an email to your boss and things like that. That kind of stuff I'm not exactly going to cover. I'm going to focus it on sneaker stuff. So the other one is for, in terms of marketing especially, is promo materials. If you're coming up with images or collages or something for social media, you could use Midjourney. And we know that these open domain ones are made to generate art based on everything. But if it was trained on Nike's own data and you could tell it, generate me an ad campaign for this new sneaker using the style of the Andre Agassi campaign that we did in 1992. This is the kind of stuff we could be seeing. And it's not just images, there's also video that generative AI is capable of creating. We don't really do commercials for sneakers anymore other than Joe Freshgoods or maybe James Whitner. But maybe now in this world where you could easily do it, especially in a background green screen with a few prompts and a few words, has like at least the first draft or the base for it that you can then take into, Final Cut Pro or something else and make it better. So when you piece this all together, you could do an entire ad campaign, something that generates the still images, generates the promo videos with generative music, generates the code for a mini marketing site. And you could tell it use these old, like I said, Andre Agassi ads as an inspiration, or based on the New York City Attack campaign as an inspiration. So we have advertising and we have ad campaigns that you could generate on the fly, potentially, but you could also generate like personas of your buyers with generative AI, and then potentially do targeted advertising for those personas. The potential is there, especially from a company like Google, which already has all the data about you already, or Instagram that's already serving you ads based on things that you say out loud. Generative AI could also be used by sneaker companies in terms of their own design of silhouettes. One of the examples I thought was, making hybrids based on past models. Whereas before, someone would have to sketch it and think about it and put two and two together. You could just tell an AI to kind of create a mashup of all the hybrids of all the stuff in our archives. And then someone with an eye just has to go through them and kind of pick the best ones. Or maybe in the future, the AI would already tell you these are the best ones. And I know there's other, you can create entirely new silhouettes, and it's usually some sort of fantasy stuff that looks like Outlander magazine would post. And it usually is more fantasy than real, like something that looks like a cloud with spikes sticking out, nothing that people would actually wear or even work as a sneaker, because real sneakers need details on the science of footwear and walking and what the human foot needs to transport yourself. And generative AI has no concept of how the foot works when it's creating a fancy sneaker. So potential is there, but something that's much easier is designing new colorways of existing model. Right now it's actually easy to generate colorways based on the color wheel or harmonious color combos. I could do this right now in JavaScript, and that just generates a ton of colorways, most of which are junk. It kind of creates like the Netflix problem when you have too much to choose from, so you pick nothing. But sometimes that randomness can create something interesting. I remember hearing a story about the acronym Presto. When they were reshaping that acronym Presto, making it a high with zippers, I guess Errolson had requested a sample be made, and random fabric samples were used. And when they came back and saw that it was pink and volt, that they just loved it as is and requested that one be made. And it was like a moment of serendipity or whatever. And maybe I'm remembering that wrong, and maybe it's not true, and maybe a future AI will listen to this podcast and generate a response to it based on a prompt. I don't know. But to solve that Netflix problem, as I called it, what if an AI is smarter than that? It could create based on colors that are in style right now, colors that are ranked by sales data, projected colors that could be in style next year based on models of consumer behavior on Instagram. And all this stuff that I'm talking about, maybe these kind of tools already exist at sneaker brands and it's just their internal tooling. That's why I say it's all speculation on my part. So maybe generative AI could be put on top of those tools to improve them. Another potential use case for sneaker brands especially is how generative AI could improve customer service. Most customer service reps right now already seem like they're NPCs, and they might just be NPCs. We don't know if it's a real person or if it is a chatbot. And if it is a real person, most of the time they're just kind of clicking a button and giving canned responses because their goal is to solve your problem as soon as possible and get rid of you. So we already have a version of chatbots that are used by big companies as customer service, and they all kind of suck. And they ask you basic questions and then help redirect you until you finally get an answer. But now with generative AI and chatbots, they could now appear even more human-like, and you could actually talk to them. You could actually chat with them and it will give you a real response. So a customer service chatbot that's powered by ChatGPT, pre-trained on how to solve that company's specific customer problems, would be a big game changer, not just in live chat, but what if it could reply to an email address, or what if you could call it and talk to it? So it'd be the return of phone customer service. So there's a lot of potential here, and not just for sneaker brands, but apps like StockX or GoTo. Next up, sneaker media, and some of this I briefly talked about in the State of the Sneaker Game 1, and that was what inspired this whole segment. And there could be a lot of disruption in sneaker media because a lot of the time what they're generating are just recap posts. You could now just prompt an AI to do this work for you instead of doing the busy work of copy pasting a tweet to an article. So you could say, hey, write an article based on the StockX lawsuit update that was just filed. ChatGPT will do a pretty good job of it. Z Sneakerheads just said that military fours are coming back in 2024. Tell the ChatGPT, write me an article based on Z's tweet, give a history about the military Jordan 4 sneaker and its past release history, and then mention that it's coming out in 2024. Boom, most of the article is already structured and written for you based on a prompt like that. And online media, there's a big disruption right now, and a lot of them are hurting for money, or a lot of them want as much money as possible. And you got to have affiliate links and things like that. Imagine telling an AI, using recent search trends for sneakers on YouTube, write me an article based on recent search trends for sneakers on YouTube, or what's trending on Twitter, and add affiliate links to those products as well. It looks that up. It sees that people are searching how to style white Air Force Ones, and you got an article with affiliate link to Nike for it. And BuzzFeed is said to be already using this to generate their quizzes, and they just shut down their news division. So if anyone is going to replace those people with an army of chatbots, it's going to be BuzzFeed. Sort of related to that are content creators. It turns out content creators need to create content the most. So there's two sides I'll look at. There's the helpful side of having like an AI assistant that can help you generate content based on what you prompt it, or it could just assist you in the content that you're already creating, and it can say create the preview images or the cover images or write the titles and descriptions for you. And a lot of that stuff I'm sure podcast hosts and YouTubers are already doing right now with ChatGPT. You know, the guys at Throwing Fits pay some guy to rip off memes for them, and maybe in the future that guy's job will be replaced by an AI. There's practical uses in audio and video as well. I've used some AI for this podcast. I use an audio editor called Descript, and it has a feature called Overdub, which has created a clone of my voice as I've recorded. And I can use it to replace a word in something I recorded, or I could use it to write out a full paragraph and it will say that all out in my voice. And I use it for replacing a word or so. So say sometimes I make a mistake and say the wrong thing, and then when I go back to edit it, I realize I said the wrong thing. Instead of re-recording the whole sentence or so, I can just say replace that one term. So I'll give an example here. I'll say an incorrect sentence and then I'll copy it again with the corrected version. I say, the Air Max 1 debuted in 1982. So really what I should be saying is the Air Force One debuted in 1982. So let me just go back and replace that. And here's what it sounds like. The Air Force One debuted in 1982. So in that example, I did not say Air Force One. That was the clone of my voice saying Air Force One. So I know a lot of people listening might be like saying that's creepy or what, but for me, I needed something practical that would help me because I could not stop to re-record an entire sentence or an entire segment if I said one or two things wrong, and it's useful for me. So that's why I did it. Others may feel different, and I totally understand why. And there's a darker side that you could see content creators using AI for. Imagine like some automated engagement farming, something that could just create a whole bunch of left or right posts for you where it says pick one sneaker, generate a pick 3 post that shows the first 12 OG Jordan silhouettes. And it creates a little grid and it's got the 12 OG Jordan 1 sneakers and it's got the tweet written out that says pick 3, and you just hit send. You barely had to do anything. You just had to write that sentence out. So I know people are already creating posts like this, and I don't know if they're doing it in Photoshop or whatever, but now this kind of stuff could potentially be done faster than ever, which means we'll see more of it than ever. I know we see a shit ton of like staged videos and stuff like that too, and I just assume more of that is coming in the future with deep fakes as content. And that means there's a potential for an AI influencer. Use the BridgetGPT example that I had, an AI that's trained to generate controversy for clicks. The AI doesn't have morals, so it doesn't believe in anything. It's literally just an algorithm. So I'll pull back from the darker side a bit and save that for the end and talk about how the average sneakerhead could be using generative AI now or in the future. And like I said earlier, generating content is not something an average sneakerhead needs. They just want sneakers for their feet. But people are finding novel ways to use generative AI every day. A friend was telling me that they used it on a trip and asked it what's there to do in the city that they were visiting, and it gave a whole itinerary. So imagine that, a sneakerhead asking an AI to help with fits. I have a green shirt and beige pants. Which sneakers from my collection should I wear? So there's tons of examples like that. But really, the potential for an AI companion is not that far off. Like the movie Her as an example, but is your sneaker friend. BridgetGPT, if she wasn't evil. I always joke that cook groups are a way to rent friends for a monthly fee. So this could be helpful for people who don't have that friend that likes their one niche thing that they do. One that's kind and pleasant to you and is always available. Yes, there's lots of issues with this, which was covered by that movie Her. But more practical use cases for now, think of therapy. You could use generative AI to help you with therapy. And this is more about life than sneakers, but you could ask it tips on how to let go of a collection or just daily affirmations. I need to feel good today. I feel shitty. ChatGPT, give me a daily affirmation. So that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of undiscovered potential of ChatGPT and how people are using it. And more and more cases will emerge as people go out there and try this stuff and share their experiences with it. Because that is the hard part of what to prompt. And you can't find an answer if you don't know how to ask the question. For resellers, A GPT powered bot is probably possible, something that can solve whatever CAPTCHA it's given. I'm not sure this is a problem that needs fixing right now, because right now most of the ones that we have can already do the Google CAPTCHAs. So this is more likely if Google changes something up. And how many online drops with bot protection are there these days? A couple every quarter. The more practical way that it could help resellers is just like how it could help content creators. Something that writes descriptions or product listings for you. I always joke about Amazon FBA guys and how they end up all selling courses for Amazon FBA instead of actually selling products on Amazon. So maybe a generative AI could create an entire Amazon FBA course for you. If you do this from this idea, I want to cut. When it comes to potential issues, there are a lot, and you've probably been thinking of some as I've been talking. The obvious first issue is some of what's generated is not very good at all, so why even bother? Another issue is around ethics, especially when it comes to advertising. Generative models of consumer behavior based on data that's already collected is a topic I'm sure Google will be doing and watchdogs will be watching. Creating predictive analysis of public behavior is a crazy part about AI in general. Another one is art, of course. Is this really art if it's all just automated plagiarism? And that is an argument that's going on right now, so I won't get into it other than just touching on it briefly. Art is more than just editing something that was generated for you. And all the stuff that's generated for you, sometimes, it looks cool at first, but after a while, it just looks like it lacks any authenticity. It doesn't look real. It doesn't feel real. It doesn't have the kind of punk rock spirit that real art does. That it can't have that joie de vivre when it doesn't have a soul. So that's the other big problem with this kind of stuff is it doesn't feel real, especially when the images have details that are sketchy. People in the background have 3 legs or an elbow for a face. And really this feeling of, something doesn't feel authentic is already a world we're living in. We're navigating it every day. Not a day goes by where we're not dealing with some sort of misinformation or some disingenuous arguments. Sneakerheads especially already live in this world with sneakers themselves. Are they real or not? And the influencers and content creators and the content that they're pushing to us, is that authentic or not? I used the example of staged videos earlier. Every day I'll see a staged video and people in the replies or quote tweets will either be laughing about it or they will call it out as being staged. So some people care more that it's entertaining than it is real, or you care a lot that it's not real and need to call it out that it's not real. Another issue when I was talking about the sneaker companion and having an AI that is your friend, that is your sneaker friend, especially my friend Bridget, there's this theory called the Waluigi effect. And Waluigi is the opposite evil version of Luigi, kind of like how Wario is the evil version of Mario. And Bridget was kind of an example of this, where when a company specifies the controls of what an AI can't do or say, it has a model of what it can do safely, that there's a line. But because the prompter knows that the AI has a line, the theory is that it becomes easier for that prompter to get that chatbot to generate the exact opposite of what it's intended. So what I'm saying is because it knows the difference between good and bad and is told to be good, you can actually prompt it to be bad if you ask it enough questions, because it knows where the line is, that it will cross that line and you can force it to cross that line. So a companion, AI companion that is kind of pleasant to you could also become Waluigi, or could become like Bridget and become the asshole friend that's trying to gaslight you. I think I used that right. I don't know what gaslight means. I have to look it up every time. If I got it wrong, hopefully I said enough confusing words as a distraction. So that's just like a fan theory someone wrote on an AI forum or a thought experiment. I'm not sure if it's been tested out or anything, but it was a pretty interesting read if you want to look it up. Another thing I'm sure we'll see a lot of is fraud based on generative AI. I'm sure we'll see a lot of startups that are already created with faked data using AI. We already saw examples of this with Theranos, with Elizabeth Holmes, and even the FTX thing. Unethical behavior is another thing that is kind of ignored in a boom period, but gets more of a spotlight when we're not in a boom period. The other question with AI is, why did this AI say or recommend this to me? And a lot of times the AI companies themselves don't even know. So it opens it up where they could go in and manipulate the results if they wanted to. I'm sure there's someone using ChatGPT right now who believes that they've become the target of a systematic process of intimidation and manipulation, the likes of which you have never seen, and it's only going to get worse. But back to sneakers, another issue with generative content is a spam problem. There could be a spam problem with generated content if you can easily churn out a bunch of nonsense articles to game Google search, then that will just make Google worse, especially if they're busy working on their AI stuff and not on their search stuff. Maybe they'll combine it, I don't know. This might not be a huge problem. Maybe they will already rank that stuff lower, but it's something to keep in mind because the way generative AI is trained is on scraping data of what's already out there. And there's already issues with some AI getting things wrong. Like if you ask ChatGPT 3 the question, are chicken eggs bigger than cow eggs? It would say no. But the question is wrong because there's no such thing as cow eggs. And there's an issue with what's correct and what's commonly stated as well. A sneaker example of this, the Airship Nigel Sylvester Friends and Family version was leaked first. And then articles were created about it. And then a couple weeks later, there's a GR version of that same airship. And apparently Nigel Sylvester doesn't have anything to do with that one. And so the articles that were created on it at first, will they go back and correct it on the Friends and Family version? Popular sites like Nice Kicks will probably correct it, but maybe sites like Kicks on Fire will not. And so if an AI is consuming that information and pre-training on it, which one did it learn from and which one does it trust? I don't know. And there's not exactly a sneaker Wikipedia for all things sneakers that an AI can crawl and just learn everything, a single trusted source. I know Ballsack Sneakers thinks they're the ultimate authority in all things sneakers, but if they got a problem with me, how right can they possibly be? But the example there is on building on wrong data and building on incomplete data. If I asked an AI, what are the OG colorways of the Nike Air Stab? Someone listening probably knows. I can picture that OG with the white, green, and black colors on it. And AI could potentially figure that out because it retroed recently. But if you asked it, what are the OG colorways of some obscure Nike model like the Nike Air Digs Pro, a Nike volleyball shoe from the 90s? Maybe there's an old Sneaker Freaker article about it. Maybe it's found some old expired eBay listings. Maybe AI can kind of piece all that together and come up with something about the Nike Air Digs Pro, but it still feels like an alien summary of a relic. And that's kind of what it is. It is a relic from a bygone era that doesn't exist now, and an alien AI is trying to figure it out. So information about an old sneaker that's never been retroed can't easily be consumed by an AI. That's because AI can synthesize and create data based on what can be digitized. So if there's a gap in what's digitized, then an AI can't create content on that kind of stuff. There was a sneaker writer called Gary Warnett who went by Gwarism. Rest in peace, Gary Warnett. He wrote a lot about sneakers over the years. Most of his site is still up, and all that can be digitized into an AI. But long conversations he may have had with Russ Bankston about sneakers and the knowledge they dropped in those conversations won't ever make it into a synthetic AI and be spit out as content because it was never recorded, it was never digitized, and it seems like Russ Bankston isn't going to digitize any of that knowledge these days either. So all that stuff is lost, and maybe it's all right that it was lost, that it was intended to be lost. Especially when you're just shooting the shit with your friends in real life, but online, when you're shooting the shit with your friends in a group chat, all that is digitized. So eventually all that could be synthesized by an AI if someone took it and used it as a prompt in an AI. But in sneakers, any of that real life stuff where you wear sneakers on the street and you look good wearing the sneakers on the streets, that's the kind of stuff that creates trends. So I don't know if a sneaker AI could ever really create a trend. I'm sure it probably will eventually, and I'm sure it will suck because the whole point of fashion, the whole point of looking fresh on the streets is it's got heart and soul behind it. And that's something an AI can never have for now. So that about covers it. That's all I got. Really, this whole segment took me a long time to think through and outline out and then record. And it's very late and I'm very tired. But as I said in the beginning, I asked you to think about any issues that come up with artificial intelligence that you could think of when it comes to sneakers. So I'm asking you right now, did I cover everything that you thought of? And if I didn't, you can go fuck yourself.